it's strange when you put it 20 years. We've been working at some of these problems, and as Tony Scott mentioned in the general session, this truly is a marathon. It's not a sprint, but every once in a while, as I say, you have to do a bit of a pickup. And we do pickups every once in a while, and I run a lot. When we do pickups, it's usually because the conditions have changed. The pack has moved forward, you're running up a hill, you're running down a hill, the conditions have changed, the landscapes have changed, or in certain situations, you might be behind where you want to be on your race pace. So I always talk in analogies. I use a lot of visuals in my presentations. And I'm going to start with a visual that just to sort of set the stage. Normally when I come up and present to folks, we talk, and I speak as a salesperson. That's my role. I lead a sales organization. But I'm going to take off the sales hat for Dell Software, and I'm going to put on a different hat. And that's as a people manager within a large bureaucratic organization. And with that hat on, I'm going to talk about our insider threat mitigation and detection system inside Dell. So I'm going to take the sales hat off for a second, put the hat on that says I'm a mid-level manager in a large bureaucratic organization, and I'm hoping that many of you can identify with that. I have a challenge this morning, and that challenge is to be more interesting than whatever it is you have in your hands. So if you have a device in your hands, my challenge is to be more interesting than Candy Crush or Spider Solitaire or Twitter or God forbid, email. So my challenge right now is to be interesting, and your challenge is to remember some questions, because I am going to leave some time at the end of the prepared remarks so we can have a little bit of a dialogue and we can talk about the material that I'm going to present in a minute. Acronyms. I'm going to use acronyms today. If you don't understand what the acronyms are, just put your hand up. We can explain them. I'm going to start with an acronym that you may be aware of. It's BLUF, B-L-U-F. It's not misspelled. It's actually B-L-U-F. Does anybody know what BLUF stands for? Folks in the military probably know. Bottom line up front. Bottom line up front. And if you go back to your workspace, if you're talking to your significant other, spouse, your friend, whatever, your coworkers, you'd say, all right, what'd that guy from Dell say? You're going to remember 3 words, just 3 words. The bottom line up front: layered, connected, and contextually aware. And I think that second one's hyphenated, so that only counts as 1 word. Layered, connected, and contextually aware. Those are the 3 things that I want you to take away from the presentation. And with that, we'll talk about Dell's Insider Threat Program. Start with a basic premise. Why are we doing this? Why is Dell engaging in an insider threat mitigation program? And the one thing that I would take away from this slide with a lot of numbers on it is in the upper right-hand corner. 70% of breaches can be attributed to human elements. We had a survey come out from our SecureWorks division the other day, and it actually said that they're less interested in tracking malware, not interested, but less interested in tracking malware, because most of the major breaches are happening because of compromised credentials. You don't need to use malware when you have a username and password that's not been protected through 2-factor authentication, as Tony had mentioned earlier. If that's what you're trying to protect from, you really do need to take a different perspective on this. In the corporate world, in the private industry world, the cost of cyber breaches is enormous. In the public sector, it's also quantifiable as well. And last week, there was a solicitation that was issued. It's an estimated value of $133 million just for the insurance related to the OPM breach. The real cost of breaches is both on the private sector side and also on the public sector side. The other item here, and again, lots of numbers, and we'll make these slides available to you. The one thing that I wanted to focus on this slide is really the 97. And for those of you who are in the back of the room, you probably can't read this. It says that 97% of insider threat cases in this survey involved employees whose behavior was flagged by superiors or supervisors as suspicious, but were not followed up on by the organization. So there were known issues going on with the insider, but they weren't followed up on. That's enormously important to understand, is that this information around the insider threat exists. It's yet to be acted upon in a coherent way by the organization. Now, you may be thinking of some of your coworkers who are acting a little suspiciously. Now's the time to actually figure out what to do about that. This also introduces the concept, and the whole section there in the lower right-hand corner talks about potential risk indicators. And we're going to spend a second talking about potential risk indicators. The FBI has actually done a pretty good job of understanding forensically, based on people who have done this kind of activity, what the insider threat profile involves. And if you can read the second sentence in that top paragraph, the thief who is harder to detect and who could cause the most damage is the insider, the employee with legitimate access. And this is one of the reasons I thought that the cybersecurity sprint was really, really insightful. It did not focus on things like encryption, because in the case of the OPM breach, encryption would not have solved the problem, because the person or people who had perpetrated the breach actually had credentials that would have bypassed encryption. What we need is better controls over the insiders, who are very difficult to detect because they have a legitimate identity in the organization. So getting back to the potential risk indicators, what the FBI has identified is a series of attributes that bring people into an elevated level of suspicion. Now, it's getting a little bit paranoid in the room. So we'll talk about this idea of being marginally aware of what we've learned from previous breaches. This isn't about profiling. This isn't about hauling people off for crimes they have yet to commit, but we think they're going to commit. We're not doing Minority Report here. What we are doing is understanding the profile of folks who are likely to commit insider threat activities. Okay? It's pretty straightforward. And we'll talk about how we balance out employee and individual concerns for privacy and personnel rights with the idea of protecting the assets and the information and the workspaces that we are all charged with doing. The one thing that I learned from this, and I've talked to a number of people at the FBI, the one indicator, this is a survey question. Does anybody know what the one indicator is? Best indicator for someone who is likely to commit road rage. Anybody? Yeah, Rebecca knows. She's been in my presentation. I've asked this question before. All right. Personal financial problems, committing road rage. Good guess, but no. In the back. Bumper stickers. So see, this guy's been in my presentation before. The most accurate indicator of road rage is a bumper sticker. And you say, what's a bumper sticker got to do with road rage? Especially if it tends to be a very, visualize world peace or something like that, or vote for a political candidate that you think is not necessarily very controversial. Everything is controversial with a bumper sticker because you're going to annoy somebody else. And by putting that on your car and displaying that badge, you're seeking affiliation. And if you look at some of the ideas that the FBI has put together, it's people who need to identify, it's people who need to affiliate, it's people who need to display, it's people who are saying they're right and you're not, bless you. And one of the things that happens is that seemingly uncorrelated activity of putting a bumper sticker on the back of your car in road rage is we're searching for the big data elements that actually can lead us to figure out whether somebody is likely to perform some sort of insider activity. Think about connecting dots which don't necessarily seem to be at first blush connected by looking at the potential risk indicators. And the ideas that we've got here is that these potential risk indicators can be factored in and can be measured. If we go back to the presentation earlier today by the director at NOAA, it's correlating vast amounts of information. If you look at the IARPA information that was in the keynote speeches this morning, that correlation of seemingly unrelated data can help us gain insights, but it's knowing where to look and how to do it. We at Dell take this not just as an IT issue. This is actually a workplace safety issue. And this is certainly not an IT issue, and it's certainly